I just wanted to extend our welcome to everybody to the conference as well. Alfred took all of my questions except for one. So I'll just ask the question that maybe he might add to his remarks next time. How many of you are transfer students? Okay. I was a transfer student way back when. I went from a 4-year to a 4-year. As recently as 2 years ago, I actually heard an individual in a conference session say, well, we don't need your tools. We're a 2-year school and transfers only from 2-year to 4-year. We all know that's not true. And so transfer is becoming more and more of an issue. Preaching to the choir obviously here, but schools spend so much money on recruiting first-time freshmen and so much money and resources to retention efforts. Anybody hear that term on their campus still? And transfer students are sort of the forgotten population. Those are the students that you need to backfill those programs when Johnny comes to school and wants to be an engineer. Well, Johnny's dad wants him to be an engineer, and he can't pass math. So you need those transfer students to get those qualified students, because your faculty don't all want to teach introduction courses, right? They want to teach the cool, fun courses at the next level. So transfer is obviously very important and obviously a growing factor. Transfer, and in particular, the pathway from high school all the way through terminal degree was, and it still is, the greatest passion of our founder at College Source. So College Source is a company that's dedicated to providing transfer resources to you. We have a couple of different products that if you're interested in looking at, to kind of give you sort of a bumper sticker saying, because we all like things in short little snippets, we have our one product is a college catalog database that saves your institution money, increases your efficiency in transfer evaluation. And the other product is a student recruitment tool that will actually earn you money. If you attract just one additional student that you hadn't already reached out to, that tool pays for itself. So at College Source, we would again like to extend welcome to you to this conference. This is a terrific conference that deals with specifically the topics that we're dealing with every day. If you'd like to see our tools, we have a table out in the entryway here. We do have a presentation today as well. So again, extending our welcome and thank you for having us.
Thank you, John. A little bit housekeeping today. So all of you should have received this in your packet when you are in your program. And as you notice, there's a session today that's canceled from 3 to 4. There has been a session that is replacing that. It is called Strengthening the 2-Year to 4-Year Partnership. And it will be in Salon C. Every one of you will get an email probably within the next half an hour or an hour. Please make sure that you look through that. It will have a description. And please attend that session as well. Okay. And then lastly, what I'd like to do is thank, again, Judith, Laura, Janet, and their team for doing a great job on this conference. Being a quasi event planner, I know what it takes to do all of this, so let's give them a round of applause for a great job. And then also, one of my traditions is to thank the staff that help us here. So all of the people who are helping serve us, making sure that the breakfast and the coffee and that our rooms and so forth are clean. So let's give them a round of applause as well. So I'm excited to start this session. It is, I'm going to introduce a group of people who I've been working very closely with for the last several years, some of them for many, many years, and some of them newer, but nonetheless, working together to create a transfer sending and transfer receiving culture that allows us to really help students, and looking at not only what one person can do, but what an institution can do, and why it's critical to have that institutional commitment and have it permeate throughout the entire college to really provide access for students. Access without retention is nothing. So in order for us to be successful, we need to make sure that we teach students not only about how to get there, but how to stay there, how to not survive, how to excel, and how to move forward into the next level of what their interests are. So the title is called Creating Sustainable Change to Support Transfer Students, and it's an institutional effort. I'm going to introduce our panel here, and then we'll start. So I always like when, to my right, to my far right, we have, who's there? Oh. Kirby Dominguez, the Transfer Center Director at East LA College. Next to him is J. Edward Stevenson, Assistant Professor in Communication Studies at East LA College. Next to him is Paulina Palomino, the Dean, it's actually a misprint, it's the Dean at East LA College. And then we have President Marvin Martinez at East LA College. And a word about Marvin, actually, Marvin is a Bruin, so that's a good thing. Secondly, Marvin was a student there when I was starting my career at UCLA. So I have known Marvin for about 3 years. And I'm actually very proud to say that we are very proud of his trajectory in higher education and the work that he's been doing. So that's our panel. Let me get started, and then we'll move forward. So you guys have the clicker? So I wanted to give you kind of a landscape of the higher education in California. Many of you are aware of this, some of you may not be. So as you can see, we have public universities, and we have two systems of public education. The California State University, which has 23 colleges across the state. University of California, which has 10 campuses across the state, UCLA, of course, being one of those. We have private universities, and there are over 70 private universities in the state. We have 113 community colleges all through the state. We have 21, the LA County, that means just the county alone of Los Angeles, has 21 community colleges. And then the LA Community College District has 9 colleges, East LA College being one of them. So for Los Angeles, it's not uncommon for students to have 3, 4, 5, 6 community colleges that they attend, because they are close in proximity, and when you can't get courses in one area or at times that you want them or so forth, it's very easy to drive 3 to 5 miles or to take the bus to go there. We also have a lot of students who, because of whatever other reasons, are doing a lot of this college hopping to make sure that they get the best education for them. So it is not uncommon for students to be East LA College students and West LA College students and so forth. And I want to give a shout out to the California people, only because I'm tied to them, but also because we have so many California colleges here to this conference than we've ever had, and because we finally have money. But we're really excited that our California contingency is growing, and we hope to continue to see that, not only with California, but a lot of the West Coast communities. So again, welcome. So this is what the landscape looks like in California with regard to community colleges and where they fit in the higher education. What we want to do now is I want to introduce Marvin to come and give you some more specifics about what we're doing in our partnership and what they're doing at East LA College to move the needle for students. Marvin.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. I think all of us are still trying to get over the jet lag, but we're here. We're really excited about being here today. I'm excited because, I've been to many conferences, and I've been sitting where you are, and as a practitioner, usually what I want to hear is I want to hear what is the speaker talking about that I can take with me, so I can take that to my campus and somehow implement it so I could also move that needle on my campus. So I will try to do that as best as I can because I certainly want to be able to give you information that you can take back with you. So just a little bit about our student body, about East Los Angeles College. We're one of the 9 colleges that make up the LA Community College District. We are one of the largest colleges not only in LA and in California, but also the country. Actually, the Chronicle of Higher Education ranks us as one of the top 10 in the country in regards to enrollments. We have a head count of over 30,000 students. We have enrollments totaling nearly 80,000 per year. It is a huge campus. We have over 400 full-time faculty. We have 1,100 adjunct faculty. So you get the picture. It's a large campus. In terms of who is our student body, 77% of the students are Latino, Hispanic. Another 18% are Asian American, Pacific Islander. And then, of course, we have that category all of us love, which is called other. And that's a mixture, of course, of everybody else. So that's who our student body is. But let me tell you more about our student body. About 50% of our students this is their first time ever being in college. And just think about that a little bit as we do the presentation. Our area has one of the highest poverty areas in the country. The community around us, only 6% of the total population in the east side have a bachelor's degree. So I used to work at a place called Santa Monica College, which is in the west side of Los Angeles. And in that area, 60% of the population had a bachelor's degree. So guess what? The east side did not have that college-going culture. It didn't exist at home. It did not exist in their communities. But we had to move the needle. So I'll tell you what we began to do as we've described. What's the vision? So when I arrived at East LA College, this is my 4th year now at the college. Prior to that, I was president of LA Harbor College, which is another college that makes up the LA Community College District. When I arrived at East LA College, what's the first thing you do as a college president? You look at statistics. You look to see how many students are transferring, how many students are graduating, and so forth. What is it that I need to do in order to get the campus moving? How do I mobilize? So first thing we needed to do is, number one, that our transfer rates, given the size and scope of the campus, had to be larger. It cannot be that size. We had really low transfer rates, and they needed to be much higher in comparison to the campus that we have. Secondly, we had to increase expectations of students. We had to increase expectations of the campus community that we needed to be and should be a transfer campus, a college-going culture campus. So we quickly set out in order to do that. Again, we increased expectations. Number 2, we quickly set out in order to hire more staff. Just to let you know, I think if you notice, most colleges that transfer a lot of students have large counseling departments, and it's by no accident. It's by no accident. We know that counselors make a huge difference in terms of how they're meeting with students, because they're the ones who meet with students to encourage them to transfer. Our counseling department, when I arrived at the campus, we had, I think, 18 full-time counselors, which is really small compared to that campus. Again, at the campus where I used to be, called Santa Monica College, they had nearly 60 full-time counselors, 60, including another 80-plus adjunct hourly. We had 18. So we set out to hire more people. And we hired, and I think we have about 30 or so full-time counselors. So we've increased the number of counselors, of course, on the campus. Other things that we set out to do out in California is that, I began to outreach to our local colleges and universities. So I obviously outreach to Alfred over at UCLA. We outreach to LMU. We outreach to Cal State LA. But let me take that a little bit further. I personally outreached. So I called Alfred. We made contact with the chancellor of UCLA. We called the chancellor and said, can you come to East LA College? And by the way, can you bring many of your administrators with you, such as your dean of admissions, such as your director of financial aid, and come and meet with our campus. We'll host a forum, and you can tell us, what can we do to get more students from East LA College to UCLA? What's the problem? What is it that we need to break through in order to ensure that that happens? And everyone participated in the discussion, and I think that what everyone got out of it is, you know, they heard what the roadblocks are. They heard what the challenges are. More importantly, we began to establish a roadmap as to what we need to do to get more students into a campus like UCLA. For LMU, I went out to visit LMU with our staff, with Paulina and others who you're going to hear from later, and we met with our Dean of School of Education and other administrators and said, what can we do to get more students into your campus? Did the same thing with Cal State LA, invited the president to the campus, and we also had a forum and discussion. What can we do? So we took it a step further. It wasn't just me giving them a phone call and say, hey, how you guys doing? And let's get together. Get more students, please, into your campus from East LA. It had to be more than that. Because from that time on, we established, in essence, we want to establish, in essence, a movement on the campus in order to get the campus moving in this direction. Let me talk about some statewide efforts that also have helped at the state level to help us increase the number of transfers. About 5 years ago, I think there was a bill, a Senate bill, I think Senate Bill 1440, that established an opportunity for us to develop more what we called associate degree transfer degrees, or ADTs, in order to increase the number of students that could transfer to the California State University system. And we're going to show you a chart just to show you the difference that made. So the legislation said, we need you to do this, we mandate it, we want you to ensure that you can get more of your students to transfer to the Cal State system, so it's much more of a smoother transition, and we can lessen the number of roadblocks. There's been other funding sources, as Alfred described. One's called student equity. The purpose of student equity is to close achievement gaps. So we do know that on our campus we have certain populations of students that don't transfer at the same rate that other students do. So an example is we saw that the Latinas, or they were not transferring at the same rate that other students do on a campus. So we have utilized those funds to increase the number of transfers. We've utilized these funding sources, by the way, to develop summer bridge programs, which we're going to talk to you about a little bit later. We have one with UCLA, we have one with LMU, and basically what we do is we take students from the east side to those campuses, and they spend 3-4 weeks on a campus, so they can become much more familiar with what goes on campus. And I'll tell you something, you know, many of you, of course, have been students at various universities. There's nothing as powerful as being on the campus and walking around the campus with your backpack and feeling that you are a student, that you can make it there, that you can be a student. And guess what? Most students that go into these summer bridge programs, when they come back, what do they tell us? I'm going to apply there. I'm going to go there because I know I can make it. So that's something else that I do want to encourage you as you work with your local universities. Talk to them about summer bridge programs. And if you have a way to cover the cost, because that's what I did with Alfred. I said, Alfred, I need you to accept at least 200 of our students, and we'll pay for it. Don't worry about the cost. We'll take care of it. Can you please accept them? So as I think, you need to find a way to make that happen. Use whatever resources that you can. So I'm going to go over to the next slide, because that's just one slide, by the way. We're going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Paulina, who will get more into detail about what we've done at East LA College. Thank you, everybody. Paulina, take it away.
I'm on, right? Yes. All right. So after having had a college president for about 20 years, we received President Martinez. So things were certainly shaken up because we had been operating a certain way for a very, very long time. He came with a new lens and enthusiasm to move our campus forward in a direction with a focus and an energy that hadn't been on our campus for some time. What he did is he sent an all call for the entire campus community, which was unheard of. We had never had an open forum to discuss any specific area, and so it was the transfer task force. So he made an email call to all champions, transfer champions, and also provided lunch, by the way. And the task force was made up of faculty, administrators, classified staff, and students. And so we all got together and started having a dialogue, an open dialogue. And everyone's thoughts and concerns and ideas were noted. And we started categorizing and organizing those thoughts and ideas. And as I said, we met every 2 weeks from mid-May through August. During summer, we don't have as many people on campus because we operate with lower course sections. We offer lower course sections, but we had up to 60 people at every one of those meetings attend. So that was beginning to revitalize and re-energize the commitment that we all personally had anyway to transfer. It's like New Year's on your diet, right? You forget and then you get going. So we started meeting, and what we discovered after all of those weeks of discussion is that there was a lack of an institutional strategy for transfer. And so if you looked at our strategic plan, our Ed Master Plan, transfer was a little hidden in all of our governance documents. There was a lack of strategic faculty involvement with campus transfer. And so we all know that our faculty are on the front line. They see our students daily and have more contact with them than any one of us do in student services. We're fortunate at times to see a student once per academic year, especially on such a large campus. And we also saw that although we did provide services and opportunities for students, they were limited. We had limited funding to provide those services, limited hours, limited spaces. We were working with what we had at the time, which was not very much. We had just, California was suffering, coming up on that, finishing up the recession, which was a terrible time for California community colleges. So we were doing our best, but obviously it wasn't enough to change things. And so one of what we came up with were the actual recommendations, which was to make it an institutional priority, transfer. Interestingly enough, the Center for Urban Education has been on our campus, and they've been looking at our documents, and apparently they found that transfer is mentioned over 110 times in our documents. So we have certainly made a dent in that area and making sure that it's a priority from the top. Increasing faculty involvement with campus transfer. Outside of the, or as a result of the transfer task force, we wound up developing a position on our campus, a faculty position entitled Campus Engagement Transfer Specialist, which you'll hear about in a little bit. And so that position and this individual had the energy to just zoom through the campus and look at the different ways that we can get the message out and keep people on task with transfer, specifically faculty. And then our other goal was to increase transfer-focused student engagement. So targeted transfer student engagement. We had been operating, because our campus is so large, in masses. So workshops and sessions in large groups, and putting the message out, but not necessarily intentionally targeting a specific group of students and making sure that they come. And so we started revisiting the way that we operate. I'm happy to report institutionally that since then, President Martinez did mention that we needed counselors, because how do students get their, I like to call it their education roadmap, right? Their MapQuest to the university and beyond. So we've hired 13 tenured counselors since 2014. And we have over 30 adjunct counselors, which is a lot for us, but very much needed, because every single one of those slots are filled constantly. And of course, the commitment comes with funding. We have spent almost $750,000 to date on the efforts for transfer. So some of the exciting, oh, sorry, not yet, right? No. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Sorry, I'm so excited about being here. So I'm going to hand it off to Professor Jay Edward, because he's. Oh, okay, thank you. It's a counseling faculty member in a counseling department who helps with student educational plans We operate in that model. We don't necessarily have advisors, we have counseling faculty.
So with this context in mind, you've heard a little bit so far about the overall institution. You've also heard a little bit about the vision and how that vision is unfolding. I want to share with you now a little bit about the organizational unfolding of this vision, and then we'll talk about how this has worked with the faculty. Just to kind of give you some perspective, I come from a communication studies background, and we're really interested in my research in organizational and interpersonal communication. And so a part of what has made this work is that we have folks thinking about transfer from an organizational lens and asking the question of how does this look organizationally? So here are some things that we did to make sure that transfer became an institutional priority. First, we developed partnerships between programs and units. You'd be surprised how many folks on campus were interested in the work of transfer. So many of those folks, part of our transfer task force, they really were gung-ho. I mean, there was so much good energy in the room, but we didn't have formal ways for the psychology department to work with the counseling department. We didn't have formal ways for our transfer center to work with the communication studies faculty. So we really worked to build opportunities for the interested parties to come together. So in practice, this looked like the transfer center staff walking students over to our counseling department. You'd be surprised how something as simple as students coming in and saying, okay, we're going to start you off with the overview, but you still need to meet with a counselor. And the staff walking students over to the counseling department instead of saying, oh, it's that door over there. We'll see you later. Things like that really began to create change. Furthermore, we wanted to make sure transfer was built into our governance process. How many of you are familiar with shared governance? Let me see your hands. Hands on shared governance. So in the community college in particular, and also at the university level, the faculty and shared governance is a part of the very fabric of the institution. And so we said if we want transfer to become a priority, we need to incorporate it into our overall shared governance structure. The way we did it was to create the transfer committee that reports to the academic senate and also that provides the overall ELAC shared governance committee recommendations and a follow-up about what the transfer task force had created. And this idea of building transfer into your shared governance and organizational structure allows transfer not to be this side thing that a few of very interested faculty members are doing, but it's a part of the organization. Next, you heard President Martinez talk about partnerships. Somebody say partnerships. Partnerships. You gotta say it like you mean it, partnerships. I mean, this is something that has really transformed how we operate. It has transformed the image of the institution. When folks hear that we are working with the University of California, Los Angeles, whoop, whoop, right? There is an energy that comes with that. There is a level of respect that comes with that when they see East Los Angeles College partnering with UCLA. And so thinking about strategic partnerships, and I do want to offer additional kudos to our president because it's not just something where you just send a letter or make a phone call. You work to cultivate those partnerships. Also, I'll add this point that it was a community effort to make those partnerships. Some of the faculty and the staff had the connection first, and we made sure to kind of bring in our higher level administrators in some of those partnerships. So that's really important. And finally, thinking about funding. Somebody say funding. Funding. Oh, you gotta think about the money. You gotta think about the money, right? We really tried to take an integrated approach to funding. What dollars do we have already that can be used toward this effort? And then how do we protect those dollars? As you understand, things happen in your institutions. And if you are not familiar with the funding processes at your institutions, it's time to get familiar with the funding processes at your institutions. Because in order to make this work, funding is needed. And being able to protect it, being able to identify current sources and new sources. A part of our strategy was also to make sure that when new grants and new activities are coming in, we want to make sure that they are fitting within our organizational priorities. And so that's the organizational lens, looking at the connection between on-campus units and building those connections, then making sure it fits into our shared governance structure, building those partnerships, and thinking about funding, integrated and strategic funding. So next, in addition to that organizational lens, we did work with the faculty. Any faculty members in the room? Raise your hand, faculty members. All right, all right. It's good to see some faculty members out today. One thing that we did was really think about how can we get faculty involved in ways that are meaningful and useful. So the first thing was we wanted to clarify and increase clarity between the counselors and faculty. So many times in our classrooms, the information about how to transfer is not as up-to-date and accurate as our counselors or advisors. Depending on your institution, you may consider them advisors, but our counseling faculty who work closely with the articulation, who work closely with the universities to identify what courses transfer, and so on and so forth. You know, faculty members, we're like, oh yeah, you can apply for, you know, this one major, and once you get there, you can change it, no problem. Our counselors told us to stop saying that. They're like, no, the system has changed. That worked for you back in the 90s, but now things have changed. You have to stop telling students to do that. And becoming more involved, becoming more engaged, whether it's through meetings, through our transfer task force, I should clarify, our transfer committee. The transfer committee was a place where our counselors and our faculty were coming together to go over some of these details, some of the nitty-gritty, to get clarity to better support students. But then we had to go further. We had to get creative. For those of you who teach in the classroom, you know we have some incredible power. Okay. Students may not show up to the Student Support Center, they may not show up to the Advising Center, but they will come to class. Am I right? They will come to class. And so when they come to class, it's an opportunity for us to integrate and weave into our course design transfer activities. Examples of transfer activities that some of our faculty have incorporated, some of the English faculty have students do writing diagnostics where they discuss transfer, why they want to transfer, how they plan on transfer. So think about this. Even in the English classes, students are now having a discussion about transfer. Faculty members are taking assignments and linking them to the overall transfer picture. In some classes, faculty members have students writing about majors. What is your major? Why do you want to select that? Is having a major a part of transfer? Yes, it is, right? And so if faculty members are finding these unique ways of incorporating transfer into the classroom, we have this movement, we have this momentum that's happening. And then some of us, crazy communication people, we wanted to go a little further. We wanted to add a little something special, Alfred. Okay, so what we did, we had public speaking students. It was about 7 of us, 7 communication studies faculty. In our public speaking classes, Public Speaking 101, anyone take a Speech 101 class? It was amazing, huh? Yes, yes it was. Of course it was. It wasn't as amazing as if I were teaching it, but I'm sure it was amazing. What we did, we had students draft an informative speech about transfer. They then took that informative speech about transfer and they were required to deliver it to another class around campus that met at the same time as their public speaking class. So we had massive numbers of students not only doing the work of transfer in their own class, but taking that activity out to the campus and sharing that message with other students. Now, they were nervous about that, as you probably can imagine. But this is just an example of how when faculty members integrate transfer discussions, transfer ideas, pieces of the transfer process in the class. That's how we get this organizational movement and this change. Finally, we provided structured opportunities for faculty to really get involved. So for those who, they weren't quite ready to integrate it in class, or they weren't quite ready for some of the other things, we had campus-wide activities and events where the faculty members could come out and promote their majors, promote their departments. That was one of the best selling points we had, because we're like, look, you need students, you need more students in your major to sign up for your associate's degree. Come out to this fair, come out to this activity, and you can promote it. You can promote it. And for many of the faculty, that was like their entry into the whole transfer movement. And from there, I think we reeled them in, Kirby. I think we did. I'm going to pass it on to Kirby.
Thank you. Hi. So I think Jay Edwards, someone really hard to, hello? Really hard to follow. But my name is Kirby Dominguez. I'm the Transfer Center Director. So to give you some context of what everyone here is talking about, they're talking about transfer culture. I started working at ELAC as a counselor adjunct at 2009. And I would say transfer wasn't at the very top. But I could see the zeitgeist, the culture shift around 2012, 2013, where you hear these murmurings, transfer, transfer. So really it's a top-down, bottom-up approach. It takes everyone. But really it takes key people to fight. One thing in the role that I've been hired upon is to really take on this role and make it my own. So one thing I joke around with the staff, everyone on campus, is that I've inherited a Ferrari. I've yet to learn how to drive stick shift. So one thing that I've been tasked to do is engaging students. You've heard the term being intrusive, proactive, but I think the term we're using here is engaging. So being going to the students, not expecting them to come to you. Key events that we've done, that we've kind of taken on, again, that we developed prior to my arrival, were like the Transfer Student Success Conference. So every year what we do is host these multitude of workshops that are geared towards students at different levels. An example, this past fall, we hosted a workshop for students with dependents. Again, we just tried it out. Let's see what the turnout was. We should have had 2 more sessions. We had enough students, their feedback was positive, and what we had was a panel of transfer students that went to a Cal State, a UC, and a private. And the dialogue that took place, the camaraderie, the support, is something that, again, I wasn't aware of. But again, you don't know unless you ask. So in fielding these students, one thing that is key is the research. Working with your research department to identify, either pockets of students and what their needs are. So one example would be, in terms of the research, I looked at last year's data to provide you some just overall context. For the fall period in the state of California, for the CSU UC system, the big deadline date is November 30th. So November 30th is a cutoff for fall, let's say 2017 admissions period. So for the last 3 days of November, we served 484 students in the Transfer Center. The Transfer Center is only about maybe 2,000 square feet. So to give you some sense of what, how cozy it was. In terms of the entire fall turnout, looking comparison last year to this year, there was about 3,000 students served for the fall 2015 period. Fall 2016 period was at 4,100. So my hope is that these numbers then translate to applications, that then translates to an admit, that in turn, turns out higher enrollee numbers. But again, I've inherited something that is magical, something that is phenomenal, and I don't take it for granted. But it's working with key people that are, they're vested in the long term. They care about the community, and again, building these relationships not just on campus, but off campus, with our university partners, with our community. So I would say that even extended across campus, across the city, you're hearing it like, oh, I want to go to ELAC. So there's students before, I remember starting in 2009, oh, I'm not going to go to East Los Angeles. Oh, why not? I don't want to, run into, it's like high school 2.0. But that's not the case anymore, especially with a lot of our summer programs. One thing that we have is we have an extended summer program. I was hired July 22nd, and it was a Friday. Interviewed, hired. Literally the next day, I was thrown to UCLA for a Saturday Summer Academy. Then I knew what I was stepping into. To give you a sense of the Summer Academy, it's about 21 days where a student does take a class, a summer class, 3-unit class, living in a residential hall at UCLA. So they cycle through what most students cycle through their first semester when they transfer. I'm away, I'm sick, I miss my mom, miss my dad. Mind you, a lot of our students never travel outside their local area. Maybe not even like, 5 miles radius from the local area. So when they're at Westwood area, everything is foreign to them. Especially since most of our community is predominantly Latino, Hispanic. When we went to the service halls, looking at the dorms and eating at the, dining commons, thank you. One of the dialogue pieces that we did at night was you notice the students reflecting saying, hey, I didn't notice a lot of students that looked like us. The only people that looked at us were the servers. So cycling through that dialogue, okay, let's talk about this because you will go through this at a larger scale once you're there for 2 years. So I think that's pretty much what I want to say, but yeah.
So we've had a lot of amazing changes at East LA College. We have transformed our campus and continue to transform our campus. As you heard, we've established partnerships with UCLA, Loyola. Tom is here. With Cal State Los Angeles through our Greater Outcomes East LA. And there are many universities here out of California. Raise your hand, where are you? And we want to come visit you. We want our students to go beyond, right? There is much greater community engagement. We've held sessions on Saturdays for parents on higher education, on the transfer process, in Chinese, in Spanish, in English. We have been present in our community, and we continue to move forward with this mission. Some of the lessons that we've learned is that marketing goes a very, very long way. And so we have to be strategic about how we put our message out. We do our best to continue to maintain the momentum on our campus, and we are still looking at, of course, our developmental education, math and English sequence, and looking for improvements. And of course, our funding challenges continue, but we continue to make it a priority and doing the best that we can to make it all happen.
Okay, so I have the pleasure of talking to you about our outcomes. So again, just to give you a backdrop as to what this chart means. So there's 113 community colleges in the state of California. So what this chart tells you is that in 2011, fall 2011, we were 29th out of 113 colleges. A few years later, we're number 15 out of 113 colleges, to the University of California, which is, as most of you know, is one of the most elite university systems in the country. So we're really excited about how much we've improved and how much we moved up. So next chart. This one for the CSUs, it also tells you there's two lines. The one on top, which is the red line, just tells you the number of students who have acquired an Associate of Arts degree, and for the most part, it stayed flat on a campus. However, when the associate degree for transfer began, as you can see, back in 2011-12, we had one, a generous one, and a few years later, in 2015-16, we have 457 degrees that we've issued. So we've improved dramatically. So let's go to the next slide. This is more specific to UCLA. So a couple things. One is a number of applicants. Well, what we had to do at the campus is we had to get more students to apply. We did not have enough students applying. So we had to increase the numbers, and we have been increasing the numbers. And guess what? The more students that apply, the more students that are probably going to get in. So we've increased the number of admits, of course, the number of students enrolled. So that's just, again, just a glimpse of UCLA. There's other students that we transfer students to at the UC campuses in addition to UCLA. In regards to Chicano Latino applicants, because as I mentioned to you earlier, for demographics, 77% of our students are Latino. As you can see there, the number of applicants and admission rates have improved by 10 percentage points, from 22% to 32%. So there is more students, again, applying. And that's the key, I think, for all of you, in that if you want to get more students to transfer, you got to get more students to apply. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Alfred.
Okay, so the Center for Community College Partnerships at UCLA is a center that I run, is focused on increasing access and opportunities for students who come from underserved communities. Our focus is really to help prepare students for a competitive university, not necessarily for UCLA alone, but really helping students understand what they need to do to increase their chances of being admitted to a selective university. So we do that through a series of programs. We have summer programs, we have peer mentoring, and so forth. So specifically at East LA College, over the last couple of years, we've impacted over 1,000 students, and that's probably a very low number because you don't get to capture all of the students that come in and say, I just have one question, and 15 minutes later, they don't want to fill out a form, they don't want to do this, but they want the questions, and so this number certainly is much higher. But what we have done through the partnership with East LA College and the generous funding that's been provided to us and the matching that we've done is we've been able to hire a full-time staff person for East LA College. So this person works at UCLA and spends 3 days a week at East LA College, and then 2 days a week in my office working to promote the university partnership. We have 10 peer mentors at East LA College. Typically, we have one peer mentor at our community college. In the 19 community colleges that we're working with, we have one peer mentor at that college. At East LA, we have 10. That means we have 15 hours a week per student generally there at the East LA College campus everywhere. The beauty of having the students who've transferred from there is that they have relationships and connections that we don't have. They can get places where we don't, with faculty, with student clubs and organizations, and all of those things that help them really promote transfer. And using their own experience of, I was in that classroom 2 years ago, and here I am at UCLA now doing this, that, and so forth. So as I said, they get into clubs and classroom and club presentations. We do a lot of fairs, tabling. We do a lot of different workshops, from the application through what it's like to transition, through research, through graduate school, and so forth. I mentioned the summer programs. We have one-day programs. We have 6-day programs. Kirby mentioned what he got thrown into when he first started, which was the 21-day program. So students actually take an East LA College class that's offered in a 15-week semester in 3 weeks. And it is incredibly intense. That's why I named it Summer Intensive Transfer Experience. But the level of support that surrounds those students is incredible. They do the same thing at Loyola and other colleges. We have Saturday Academies. Part of our agreement with our students that come in and become scholars for us that they have to come back 3 times a year to UCLA so they can learn about other kinds of things. And we keep them engaged with not only faculty, but staff, admissions officers, and so forth. And then we do a lot of campus tours. We host like the CARE students. Recently, we've hosted the students with dependents, former and current foster youth, and different populations. So those are the kinds of things that we've been able to do with this partnership at East LA, and helped us and them really help students understand the realities of what it's like to be a student, and how it is not something that they cannot achieve, but is something that is doable and reachable for them through the experiences of the students who've come before them. So that gives you kind of a very quick overview of what we're doing, and most of us are here for the rest of the conference and are happy to talk with you about that. So I want to close now and open it up for questions. We have just a couple minutes, about 5 minutes for questions, and then we'll go from there. So thank you. Any questions? Oh, sure. Early morning, California people, you don't want to talk? Yes?
How long was your center open at UCLA before you began this partnership with ELAC, and what else processes changed as a result of your partnership?
So I created the center in 2001 at UCLA, and so I've been at UCLA for 36 years. In my first role, I was an admissions recruiter, and so I started going to East LA in 1981. So I knew many of the people at East LA for a long time. I would go there several times a year. And then when I left admissions, created the center, I was able to focus more intently on what our interest was, and that was really helping prepare students rather than so much as recruiting them when they're already ready. Now I wanted to make sure, and this is because I saw the challenges in the revolving door that most students were going into. So we created this and we worked with them, but we never had the funding to do the intensity of what we do. What we had is the ability to send a peer mentor, one peer mentor, and then I would meet with a few people, and I only had one other staff person, so it was a very small center. With the creation and the partnership that we've had with East LA, we have one with LA Pierce College, LA Valley College, and with Pasadena City College now, I've been able to hire 3 additional staff people who focus specifically on those colleges. And then it frees me up to be able to do additional things. So we've had an influx of funding that allow us to hire staff peer mentors. At Valley and Pierce, for instance, we have 4 or 5 peer mentors. So it's increased our presence and our ability to help more students. We've gone from serving about a 325 cohort student population over about 5 years ago to this coming year, and doing maybe 6 summer programs. This coming year, I'll be doing 12 summer programs, and we'll be 640 or so students in our cohort. So it's allowed us to really increase that. And then we don't just do summer programs. This is a whole academic year thing. So once they leave summer, then we work with them. And as I said, Saturday academies are required to. They're required to meet with their peer mentor once per month and so forth. So we keep them engaged to make sure that they stay on that transfer path. Yes? So last year we had 148 students in our cohort for East LA College. This year we're going to have 175, and the year before we had about 110. So it goes up every year, and the funding that comes, and the first year was 68 or 63. The funding that comes there comes primarily from East LA College, but we do some matching in terms of our staffing and salaries and so forth. So it's kind of a combined funding effort.
Good question. Yeah, good question. We have an incredible commitment. You know, in other words, as Professor Stevenson stated, this is not going to happen until we put the dollars there. So we have invested not just dollars from our general fund. We've also invested dollars from other grants that we receive and other funding sources that we receive from the state, other initiatives called like student equity. But until you put the dollars there, it's just not going to happen. So the dollars is not just dollars just to hire. Of course, we need additional classified staff, but also to hire more faculty. So we made a commitment to hire more faculty. And you know, as a campus, just to let you know, in the last 3 years, we've hired over 100 faculty members. So you got to have the forces there with you. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. So.
There's a question here.
Hello? Oh.
So the tabling is when I guess they shut my mic off. Not the Oscars. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I am not going to stop. Yeah, we're going to finish in 1 second. Let me respond to this and then I'll get you. Fairs are when you have information fairs where all the colleges and universities come and have a table there and then they talk to the students and so forth. The tabling is when many of our peer mentors will sit out in the busiest areas of the campus, sit there with a banner that says UCLA, and then talk to students or grab students as they walk by, because we're very intrusive in that.
Alfred, may I?
Sure.
And very quickly, at our fairs now, President Martinez invites the representatives to have breakfast with them prior to the fair and to meet them and talk to them personally about our students and our transfer commitment. So that's one example of an expansion of an activity that we have on campus.
Now.
Hi, good morning.
Hey,
I work at a California community college, and we are very interested in getting our students to these type of opportunities. So I live in the Bay Area, so we're close to UC Berkeley. How do you encourage your students to come to workshops and come to events? We're really struggling to get especially our underrepresented students, to attend our workshops and events. And I guess this question is kind of to anyone. How do you encourage students? What are strategies that you use to get them to attend your workshops?
Okay, hi, I guess I'll speak to that. I think we have our own inner dialogue or kind of like acronyms that we use on campus. We have like this transfer vernacular, but I think our students don't know what that is. So it's identifying key terms that maybe relate to them and breaking it down. One example would be at the UC level, there's something called TAG, Transfer Admission Guarantee. The students, you say TAG, they're like, what's that? So there's a need to rearrange the titling and so that students are, oh, what's that? Kind of interested in question. Kind of like our breakout sessions for the most part, right? So the other thing is surveying the students and asking them, how did you learn? How would you improve this? But it's identifying the key population that you're trying to aim at. So we have a lot of subpopulations on our campus. Again, we have like formerly incarcerated, we have our foster youth, we have our first gen, we even have a large number of our students who are undocumented. The undocumented student group approached me earlier, about 3 weeks ago, and we were talking, they said, oh, is there a way you could dedicate a few of the workshop series to our students? I said, sure. But you need to help me in terms of titling it because I don't want to call it something and it's not friendly or appealing or maybe catching to their eye. So it's working with the groups, maybe even student groups on campus to identify key ways to tailor your message to the population.
I think the other thing is when you build a cohort of students who go back to the campus, having been in a summer program, get fired up about the experience that they have. I think the transfer club at East LA College was created by students who were in our summer program the very first year. So the momentum of students coming back and really engaged really helps infuse the other students, because then, the whole message that we give is to give back to the community. That's part of our charter. So these students are going and finding other students and saying, you need to do this, you need to come to this, or you need to go to the workshops and transfer centers.
I have a question. As I used to, I'm right here.
Okay, thanks.
I used to be a faculty counselor many years ago and strongly believe in that concept. But due to the reality of the cost of a faculty member, we have lost a lot of counselors in our state. They're not renewed, and we were on 9-month contracts, so they were more expensive to have us work in the summer. And we're a unionized state, so counselors are, the same contract as teaching faculty, which puts limitations on, 9-month contract versus 12-month and that kind of thing. So I was very interested to hear that you guys are hiring counselors, and I just wonder, are they on a 9-month contract, a 12-month contract? Do you have trouble with staffing in the summer? And how did you find the money to hire so many counselors?
Okay, so our counseling faculty members are on a 12-month contract, so we're year-round. President Martinez can talk about the money in a minute, but I want to key in because even if we have 100 counselors, we don't have enough counselors to meet the needs of over 30,000 students. Most recently, we started a Student Success Advocates program. There are faculty members that are engaging with us in the Student Services Division. What we're doing is we're working with our research office. They are identifying for us per course section how many students don't have a major or missing a comprehensive ed plan. Those faculty members are actually intrusively, based on their relationship with the student, getting them and linking them to the student services directly for those services. So we're looking at the students who have the missing pieces and bringing them in versus calling everyone and maybe repeating services with students who may have already had their needs met. So that's one example of trying to mobilize with a small group versus trying to blanket the whole campus with only few faculty members in the counseling department. And so, here you go.
So just quickly about funding, how it works in California. The more that your campus grows in regards to enrollment, the more revenue you get from the state. We've been very fortunate at the campus that we've been growing at a pace of about 5% over the last 5 years. So as a result, we get more funding in order to hire more faculty. That's one. Number two, in regards to hiring more counselors, we're a shared governance environment, so I rely upon the faculty senate to give me a priority list. And because we've done all this work over the last few years, such as having a task force, and everyone knows that we want to really push transfer as much as possible, the Senate has responded by giving me lists where they prioritize counselors at the top of the list. So it makes it easier for me to then go, okay, great, your top 20, out of the top 20 faculty members you've given me, 10 are counselors, wonderful. So I think, you know, everything fits well together, and again, it's a lot of commitment that we have to do this.
Thank you very much. Come on. All right, thanks. Thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to encourage you to be quick. Our sessions start in about 8 minutes. Please get to your session as quick as you can, and have a great conference. Thank you again.